Coming up on today's edition of NFL Daily, we're going to break down some of the top NFL free agents left unsigned after June 1st. There really weren't any cuts of notes, but more teams got cap space, so maybe you start to see some more action as we get closer to training camp with players getting signed. We'll go from 25 to 1. Who do you think is the best NFL free agent left unsigned? Drop that player name for me in the comments of today's show. We're going to begin at 25 with Gabe Davis, who may or may not remain unsigned for that much longer. He's taken visits. He's been involved. He was cut by the Jags after the Travis Hunter draft pick. They paid him a lot of money to not be on the team this year. He'll sign for the vet minimum because there's a lot of guaranteed salary the Jags are choosing to eat and move on from the former pretty productive player with the Buffalo Bills, but it was just not a good fit in Jacksonville. His most recent visit, or I should say upcoming visit, is the Pittsburgh Steelers later this week at a fly-in Wednesday night. He has previously taken ones with the Giants and the 49ers. Is it the medicals didn't come back good? Is it he's kind of taking his time, picking his destination? Either way, 3 teams to monitor for Gabe Davis. We're going to go kind of rapid fire on these next 3 because they all play the same position, interior offensive line. There's Shaq Mason, who frankly was bad last year with the Houston Texans. Dalton Reisner, who has kind of been on these post-June 1st lists, feels like for a couple years in a row now, but a team like the Bengals could certainly be involved there. Brandon Scherf, also still available, although we could have some retirement stuff moving forward on that front. But 3 stopgap options at guard. Mike Hilton, the former Bengals corner, is next up on this list. Kind of a red flag when your slot corner gets benched on some third downs because the team didn't trust him in coverage. But if you're searching for a role-specific, run-stopping, blitzing, nickel corner, you don't get 24 TFLs in 2 years on accident. I think Hilton still contributes and can contribute in that specific role. A lot of these guys fall into the older veteran category, which means sometimes they just don't want to sign until training camp because why go to voluntary OTAs if you don't have to? Let's go with an outside or inside corner. Kendall Fuller's played both over the course of his NFL career. Most recently with the Dolphins. Didn't have his best stuff. I thought was better with the Commanders, better with the Chiefs. Got to wonder how much more he really has left in the tank. Shaq Barrett said he is committed to playing this year after his retirement last offseason, which speaking of, by the way, I feel like there's a real chance next offseason we're doing the exact same thing with Derek Carr, where he just unretires and wants to go play again. But Barrett is a veteran mercenary edge rusher. We've seen Melvin Ingram play that role for so many years. Could see him signing in maybe early August. A 2-part ask on today's pinned comment, so it is a little bit complicated. But shout out your favorite team and name a player you want them to sign. So, Steelers Rodgers, for example, who we'll get to later on in today's show. It is the pinned comment, so go let me know down there. We'll stick with the edges. How about Matthew Judon, who, you would think was going to have a big-time year with Atlanta because he was pretty productive on a consistent basis with the Patriots, putting up almost a sack per game, and then fell apart. Just didn't get pressures. Looked like a shell of himself and ended up being a horrible trade for the Atlanta Falcons. But again, mercenary edge rusher, 5.5 sacks on a 1-year, $4 or $6 million deal is actually not that bad at all. Get to some offensive players. Gus Edwards, the Gus Bus, has shown signs of decline, quite frankly. Wasn't nearly as good with the Chargers last year as he was at his best with the Baltimore Ravens. A coaching staff that knew him pretty well in LA seems to have moved on. CJ Mosley, who barely played last year in large part due to injury, but has been a pretty productive football player the previous couple seasons with the New York Football Jets, is a free agent. It would probably be a 1-year deal. Again, this is the veteran training camp-ish signing. Very similar bucket for Eric Kendricks, who I actually thought played pretty well for the Cowboys last year. He made some plays. You could tell that, at this point, maybe a full step of speed has been lost, but he knows where to be. He's an instinctive, intelligent football player. He was still a starter for Dallas, and once the Marvin Overshow went down, their best linebacker. Probably going to miss a game or two over the course of a season. I think he's still plenty good and can be a serviceable stopgap veteran starter and help out your locker room too. Number 14, Nick Chubb. I do worry about him. the physical freak that he is never ceases to amaze me. The guy is always in incredible shape. But there was a very clear difference with the guy we saw last year. He's now coming off yet another massive injury. Not as massive in 2024 with an ankle, but he's had several season-ending injuries. He was a shell of himself last year. 3.3 yards per carry. That's 2 yards less than what he'd been averaging when he's I think one of the best pure runners in football. That's a concern for me. So I do worry about Nick Chubb being the same guy he once was. I know the Bears have been heavily linked there. I think a lot of these guys are kind of like, maybe you do a prove-it deal. And Nick Chubb very much stands out to me as a prove-it deal player. J.K. Dobbins also kind of in a unique spot. He played pretty well last year for the Chargers. 4.6 yards per carry. Almost got to 1,000 yards. Did miss some time with injury. You kind of feel like no matter what, J.K. Dobbins is going to miss time with injury. That's just who he is. The Chargers did give him the exclusive, the unrestricted free agent tender, which is super cheap, but it means he counts against comp picks still. So I am curious to see what ends up happening there. Deadline there isn't for several more weeks to go find a new destination for Dobbins, but maybe he gets a 1 year, $2.5 million deal, which is more than the tender from LA, and tries to compete for a key role. If you're a team that needs it back, who would you rather have? NC for Nick Chubb, JD for J.K. Dobbins. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Let's talk safeties. Julian Blackmon, who is a couple guys on this list, I'm kind of surprised that guy is unsigned. Blackman's one of them. I think he's a starting caliber safety. Does that mean he's closer to 64 than 32? Yeah, probably. But he's a good player. He's not a massive liability. We've seen guys over the years at safety in particular not get signed and kind of have to wait a while. I guess that's Blackmon this season. Number 11, this is the mercenary edge rusher grouping, Von Miller. He still put up 6 sacks last year. And that was better than what it was in 2023 when he just really wasn't a huge factor for whatever reason. I don't think the double-digit freakazoid athlete is what you're going to get anymore. But as a situational pass rusher on a cheap 1-year deal, why not? Stephon Gilmore was on this list last year, very high. He's on this list again this year, not quite as high. Last year, Gilmore didn't sign until into training camp with the Vikings and started a bunch of games, played 15 of them. Isn't the same guy he was in New England. He was like maybe the best corner in all football. But if you're looking, as I think some teams are, for a stopgap, for a short-term starter, for a guy to give you some stability on the outside and your fingers are crossed he doesn't fully fall off the cliff, although his speed is very much not what it was in his prime. Zone focus might make more sense where his intelligence can kind of overcome some of the speed issues he's got in man-to-man. Gilmore makes sense. Rasul Douglas, who has been tied put out to the Seahawks, I think would actually be a pretty good fit for him. Allow Devin Winston to play more in the nickel full-time, not play so much to Josh Jobe. Douglas kind of fell off last year. He wasn't as good in his solo year with the Bills after getting traded from Green Bay to Buffalo. 14 PBUs, 5 interceptions versus just 5. Older player, aging player, still a contributor, just like Stephon Gilmore. Number 8, this kind of falls in the Blackmon category of why are you unsigned? That's Kaiser White. I've always liked his game. I think he's been an underrated player for several years now. That was the case with Philadelphia. That was the case with the Chargers. That was the case last year with Arizona. Why is he unsigned? You could easily talk me into him being, frankly, top 5 on this list. We will have NFL videos for you all off-season long, so do not miss out. Hit that sub button, youtube.com/chatsports. I have all the videos you could ever want right here. Number 7, Asante Samuel Jr. Didn't play a lot last year. We'll discuss why in just a second. Outside corner has been a little bit streaky. Remember the 1 year where everyone freaked out about, Trayvon Diggs allowed so many yards per PFF, and that was the only year we ever cared about yards allowed from corners to, override the interceptions. The guy after it was Asante Samuel Jr., by the way, who led the league in yards allowed. It's not always the corner's fault, though, frankly. Big red flag here. Neck surgery in April. He's going to get a checkup scheduled in July. I think that was a root cause of some of the stinger issues he was battling in his shoulders last year. So red flags there. Going to have to wait until that medically gets cleared. About Jadeveon Clowney. This guy's often been just the mercenary edge of just like rotating around, finding spots. Kind of burned some bridges on his way out of Cleveland, did not handle that well. Ended up having a solid year, though, in 2023 with the Ravens. Wasn't as productive in Carolina. To be fair, worse team, worse chances to go get pressures. Someone will pick him up on the 1 year, $5 million deal, and he'll get you 6-7 sacks and not double digits because he just can't quite, despite all those freaky gifts, get to double-digit sacks in a season. Number 5, Zadarius Smith. I low-key think that just going back to the Lions would actually be a really good idea for all parties involved. He's bounced around in recent years too. Green Bay, Minnesota, Cleveland, Detroit. He can be just like Clowney, but was better than Clowney was last year. That's why he's ahead of him on my list. Pair of receivers to discuss here at 3 and 4, beginning with Keenan Allen. The decline is very obvious to me. Big fall off in 2023 to 2024, although the targets, the volume, all of that stuff went down. He can still be a crafty enough route runner to get open and be a safety valve, but the big playability I don't really think is there. Despite the production being worse, I am going to put Amari Cooper over Keenan Allen. It didn't go well in Buffalo. He was a bit nicked up. He had some drop issues in Cleveland. May have been a quarterback thing. I don't think you're going to get the best version of Amari Cooper that you had in Dallas and those, even some of those later Las Vegas seasons. I think he's still a contributable player, though. The bumps and bruises, I think, are a red flag to kind of keep an eye on, but he's not that far removed from being a 1,000-yard receiver with the rotating crop of QBs in Cleveland. So I am not quitting Amari Cooper quite yet. Who do you think is the better wide receiver of these two? KA for Keenan Allen, AC for Amari Cooper. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Number 2 then is Justin Simmons, who was pretty high up on our list last year when he was unsigned for a while. He's not quite as good as he was in Denver when he was, I think, a top 5 safety and was paid as such too, by the way. But he's still a good football player. He is still, I think, a top 32 safety in football. I don't know where he ends up going. Maybe he wants to kind of be patient a little bit there. I know there's been some buzz with Philadelphia, but they don't need a safety right now. So we'll see. But someone's going to get themselves a nice little June, July, maybe into August boost at the safety spot. You probably knew who number 1 was going to be. It's the most talked about one. It's Aaron Rodgers. It still feels like Steelers or bust for Rodgers, but how close are we to the bust category at this point? The Steelers start minicamp in a week, June 10th. If he's not there for mandatory minicamp, I know he's not signed, but you're the quarterback of the team in theory. You're kind of supposed to be there. I do wonder at what point the Steelers adopt, we got to find a different number. Like I wonder how much longer the Steelers are going to be willing to wait. So will Aaron Rodgers sign with the Steelers? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show.